Hello and welcome to This Is Just, Ross and Chris. We're talking about buy-to-let investment property, selling tenanted properties across the whole of the UK. And last week, I was honoured to be invited to PIN, Property Investors Network meeting that was held in Glasgow, and it was a great night. Can't say I always look forward to public speaking, but I've done this a few times now, and I did quite enjoy it. Well, when you're there, it's always fun. You meet lots of different people at these events. Obviously, all property investors or people looking to educate themselves on property. It was a good night at PIN.
And what was it? Obviously, the last 12 months has been a difficult time for landlords with various things, buy-to-let mortgages changing rapidly, the coalition between SNP and the Greens, rent controls and caps, and changing legislation. So, what was the vibe in the room from the landlords? What was the word on the street? And what was the chatter?
There wasn't necessarily one unified voice. I mean, obviously, I didn't get a chance to speak to everybody, and there wasn't the opportunity really to ask that question. But for instance, I was speaking to a really nice couple at the end of the night who came over to ask advice on rent increases, which is something that people haven't had a chance to consider too much. I mean, either you increase it by the 3% or you don't, or maybe you try for the 6%. But now it's a case of you can increase the rent by a reasonable amount, and they had a portfolio of X amount, I think about 20 properties, and the rents were really, really low because they hadn't increased them at all. They did increase them during, they gave them the 3% increase, and it was just a conversation around what's the pros and cons of increasing the rent by, say, 100, 150 pounds, a proper amount. And well, so the vibe in the room is there's one concern that landlords have. They're trying to work out what to do about the rents that they're charging. Oh, your phone. But my advice to them was, you need to get it.
No, it's not. It's never happened before. I usually turn it on silent when we do this. But I actually read on social media there was a situation where there was someone had applied for a rent increase, and the rent adjudicator had arranged to visit the property that the rent increase had applied. So they were carrying an inspection, which I didn't sort of fully appreciate that. Someone would turn up at the property and look at it and maybe compare it against other properties that are on the market. Maybe I don't know what their purpose of the visit was, but they surely can't be visiting every single property that there's a rent increase challenge on by the tenant. It's just unbelievable.
Doesn't seem workable, does it? And you think that the tenant could just do a video, or there could be a video made and sent to wherever. To travel over there to go around, I'm not sure what the exact purpose of it is. If the property's looking lovely, I mean, is the rent adjudicator going out there maybe just to do his own rent appraisal or her own rent appraisal to see what they think it might be worth? It's hard to know, isn't it? But yeah, one of the chaps there last week, at PIN, he can you not put it silent? No.
Sorry, yeah, I did.
He has the same. It would have been last week, but he had the rent adjudicator going out to his buy-to-let, but he wasn't concerned about it. He knows he's got a good property. He can't really see a downside to it. But as we said, it's a little bit hard to imagine that that's scalable for all the different rent increase claims.
So, yeah, because you could say that the rent adjudicator could go out to the property and could say, actually, the property is not in good condition, so therefore you're not able to increase it as much as you want to increase it by. But a landlord could then turn around and say, well, the reason why I'm wanting to increase it by the amount I want to increase it by is so I can invest back into the property and carry out the repairs that's needed in the property. So it'll be interesting once we start hearing the stories about what happens at these visits, and as a result of the visits, whether the rent increases are accepted or not. But that'll probably just take some time to sort of come through, these stories coming through the system.
Yes, definitely. So what other things were said last night? There's another guy there who has a decent sized portfolio, I'm not sure, but maybe 10 plus a number of properties. And he hadn't bought anything in 14 months, but now is going to, or seriously considering it anyway. And hopefully from Portfolio, I should add, he's going to get in contact. But I couldn't say for sure why it is. He certainly wasn't keen on the Scottish government set up previously, and I think just he feels more optimistic about it. I asked him if the interest rates were a big challenge to him. They kept going up month on month, well, all the time last year. And they've obviously stopped going up. They might come down. So was that it? And he said he wasn't too worried about the interest rates. It seemed to him just to be the direction of the politics of Scottish housing. So I think we've seen that ourselves. There's definitely been an upturn over the last few months with the interest rates, but that's continued with the changes at Holyrood.
Yeah, I think it has been that. I think that certainly this year, or the last 3 months, buyer confidence has returned significantly. Certainly for the properties in the stock that we've got, they're now selling much better than they were at the start of the year or the end of last year. So buyer confidence has changed. So I don't know, I think it's down to various factors, but the change in the political landscape at Holyrood will certainly help going forward, depending on what the policies, how the policies change. And I think it's still a little bit too early to understand how it's going to impact. And the stuff that's been laid before Holyrood, whether that's going to carry forward and the bills are going to pass, is still sort of, there's still a little bit of an unknown there. So yes, but it's interesting that guy's got confidence now after 14 months of not buying. So yeah, it's something that we've noticed over the last few months. Definitely people have come to us. I'm ready to buy again. I'm ready to buy a couple. Portfolio sales as well. So that is good. It's good to have that investment in Scotland, definitely.
Kesser Salimi was there as well. Just said his name right there. I don't know, because I'm going to quote kind of what he said, and it's obviously he is making predictions. So just to say that nobody has a crystal ball. But Kesser, a great mortgage broker, specialist in buy-to-let, and was there talking, and he obviously commented on the fact that the interest rate, Bank of England interest rate, didn't drop at the previous review, but that the vibe coming out of that was that it will be next time, and there may still be 2 reductions this year, and that the vote against the reduction was as narrow as it's been. So that again, the tide is moving towards the reductions. Although we all thought there would be reductions already by this time. We thought probably that would have. Well, you never really quite know. But what has happened is, because the interest rates haven't been reduced so far this year, like earlier this year, the lenders had maybe increased some of the interest rates on some of their products. But again, that's not caused us any problem. Buy to let still been much more buoyant this year than in previous years, than last year certainly. And we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen in the future. But the feeling is that Bank of England will be reducing the rates over the next couple of months. Next couple of reviews. That's according to Kesser Salimi. You heard it here. One other guy I was speaking to, I'm just looking at my notes there. He was interested in investing in serviced accommodation, and actually had just bought one. in Edinburgh. It already had a license though.
I think that might be easier, is it? If the property you're buying is already operating as a short-term let and it's already got the license. I don't know. I'm not an expert on short-term lets, but I imagine that must be easier than trying to buy a property and then apply for a license before operating as a short-term let.
Definitely.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it would definitely be easier. I don't know if you'd pay more for it or what. And obviously, it wasn't a flat in a tenement. It was a main door situation. But interesting that that was the model that he was going for. So there was a few other people actually mentioned serviced accommodation property investment there. So I think the yields. Well, actually, thinking about when I spoke to him, we were talking about occupancy rates and the nightly rate. You know, the amount that they're charging much more than before. So the occupancy rate's up. The amount you're charging is up because the cost of hotels is exorbitant in Edinburgh, particularly. So yeah, I think that although it's become more challenging serviced accommodation, it's probably become more enticing as well and more profitable at the same time. So that was that, and then the other thing was the rental report from Chris Coburn, and he said he brought up the city lets slide about Q1, and it showed that rents in the cities, Aberdeen. Well, actually, Aberdeen maybe went up a little bit, but it leveled off a touch as well. But certainly in Dundee, I think Edinburgh, Glasgow leveled off and maybe come down just a tiny little bit. But broadly speaking, everything had leveled off. But I noticed that Scotland had, overall had still gone up. So it just made me think that possibly properties that are being rented, properties to rent outside of the cities, have become more popular, or their popularity is maintained. Because there must be something that happened there. So we're guessing a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what if that trend continues into Q2. But you're right. It looks like that people are maybe renting properties in commuter towns around the cities and then coming into the city. If that sort of trend continues, it's a strange one to see that the average rents for Scotland go up between Q4 and Q1, but everywhere else, apart from Aberdeen, as you mentioned, go down. Well, not everywhere else, but the major cities, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Dundee come down. So you think that there's obviously the rental data from the towns is stronger on that quarter than the cities.
Yeah, bit of a guess, but should have asked the question. And that's really all I could say. But the vibe was positive. I mean, as I said, you get lots of people that are there for different reasons, doing different stuff. There was some developers there, people that do flips. There was all manner of property investors.
And at the end of your presentation, did everybody stand up and applaud and cheer?
It was like encore. They just wanted me to do it again.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, exactly. It's standard response. Now they asked some good questions. There were some questions asked about the changing of the lease. You know, do you need to change the lease when the landlord changes? And obviously the answer is, well, strictly speaking, you don't, but it's recommended that you do. And one of the chaps there was a bit concerned about universal credit, because getting, you know, if you buy a property with a tenants paying universal credit, in his experience, he found it, and certainly just in one case, he found it hard to tell universal credit, no, you're now paying somebody else. But I think that might have just been an unlucky situation, because we've sold plenty of properties with tenants that are on universal credit and other benefits, and it's not been any problem. So there was that.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. That's, you know, we get asked the same questions on a regular basis, like the tenancy agreement and the rental payments and stuff like that. It's almost, you know, maybe we should do a video at some point in the future that just goes all through these frequently asked questions, because they do come up on a regular basis. People are sort of interested in buying tenanted property, but what about this? What about that? Well, it's fairly straightforward once you discuss it with them.
I like the fact that you say that as if we've got 250,000 followers and thousands of people watch them.
Yeah. That was my phone going. There are obviously live questions coming in as we speak.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. I mean, that was people all around the world tuning in for this. So that was PIN last week, and it was great. And we thought we'd share some of the conversations that were happening in the room and promote PIN a little bit more as well, because it's well worth going along if you're a property person. Anything else you want to say, Ross?
That's everything.
Okay, well, thank you for watching and listening. Get yourself along to PIN, keep in touch, and all the best. Bye.
Thanks, bye.